What you end up with are these communities where, again, you push everybody out, you import your people, and now it's, now you have Pakistan right in the middle of the country. Last week, when we talked about the situation in Dearborn, Michigan, which has become, as we discussed, essentially a Middle Eastern Islamic capital right in the middle of the American heartland. And there's another video I want to play, which again highlights this problem. But before I do, I want to respond to a few things because there's a lot of reaction to my segment last week, which now has like 600,000 views on YouTube and 16,000 comments and however many million more views on X and a lot of comments. Obviously strikes a chord, not always a positive chord. Lots of people are very upset with me. And two major themes emerged in the critical comments. The biggest theme, as you would expect, is that I'm racist and I'm xenophobic and I'm Islamophobic and on and on and on. And look, if that's what you think, if that's the way you see it, I don't care. I'm not going to sit here and desperately try to convince you otherwise. I just don't care. I don't care that you think that of me. So if you are, and I know when I say that, people will say, well, how could you? You're just going to let people, you're okay with people saying that? Yeah, they're going to say what they're going to say. If that's what you think of me, I don't care. I don't care that you think that of me. I'm not going to bother to try to disprove. Oh, no, please don't. Please don't say that. What do I have to do to prove to you that I'm not xenophobic? I'm not doing that. Doesn't matter to me. That's fine. You can go ahead and say that. I especially don't care because you're all a bunch of hypocrites and liars. All of you. All the people having a hissy fit over my commentary on this issue. You're all full of crap. Every single one of you. And you know it. You tell me that I should embrace and celebrate the fact that American cities are being Islamicized. I should celebrate when American cities are taken over by Arab immigrants. And next thing you know, they're blasting the call to prayer at 5:30 in the morning and renaming streets after Muslims. And the Muslim mayor is telling Christian citizens they aren't welcome in the city and all the rest of it. You think I should celebrate that or at least accept it? Well, here's what I know. And it's what you know. And you know that I know it. Which is that if the exact same thing were happening in an Arab country, none of you would be celebrating it. None of you would be embracing that in the way that you want me to embrace this, the way that you want all of us to embrace this. If Islamic culture and tradition were being pushed out of a Muslim country in favor of white Christians who were moving in and Christianizing and westernizing the place, you would say that it was colonialism, it's imperialism, it's white supremacy, and all the rest of it. If there's any Arabic country, if there's any Middle Eastern country that over time became significantly less Islamic and more Western and more Christian, you would openly lament that fact with no shame or embarrassment. You would see it as like self-evident that that is a bad thing because you believe that Islamic countries have the right to preserve and protect their heritage and their culture. But you think that my country, that America, has no such right. And that's why your opinion is less than worthless to me. Your opinion is laying on the ground as far as I'm concerned. Doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, just to show you how absurd this is, okay? Just to show you. There's a guy who responded to me on X. He posted this. Judging leaders by their religion, not their merit, isn't patriotism. It's bigotry. America thrives on diversity, not fear. Now, the guy who posted this is named Mansoor Ahmed Qureshi, and he lives in Pakistan. So number one, we have a guy who doesn't even live in this country trying to tell us what makes America thrive. We got a foreigner in a country thousands of miles away trying to tell me, an actual American, about America. And there's a lot of this going on, right? A lot of the accounts that you see, especially on social media, saying, let me tell you about America. Let me tell you what America's really about. Oh, you don't understand America. So many of that commentary is coming from people who've never even stepped foot in this country. They're 7,000 miles away, like pontificating. I think I know. what America is really about. The gall, the arrogance that I would never do in the other way. I would never say to somebody in Pakistan, let me tell you what Pakistan's really about. Oh, that's not. I would never hear someone in Pakistan like giving their opinion about something, and then I say, well, that's not consistent with Pakistani values. What the hell do I know about Pakistan? And why would I care? Like, that's your culture. You could do whatever you want with it. And also, you live in Pakistan. How much diversity and tolerance do they have in Pakistan, Ahmed? How's it going over there with the diversity and the tolerance, huh? How's your anti-bigotry campaigning going over there? How's that landing? How would you feel if I showed up in Pakistan with a mob of millions of white Christians and we got to work to drive Islamic culture out of the country and replace it with our culture? How'd you feel about that? What if we did it, we didn't take over the whole country, but we picked out some enclaves here and there, increasing numbers of them, drove the Muslims out and imported a bunch of white Christians and created our, little white Christian enclaves. How would you feel about that? How would all the Pakistanis feel about it? How would they respond to that? How long would we all survive before we were rounded up and stoned to death? Not very long, I suspect. And you, Ahmed, would be at the front of the line holding the biggest rock, wouldn't you? While you're still giving your little speech about bigotry and hatred. You'd stone us to death for being too hateful. So I'm not going to be made to feel somehow guilty for wanting America to be American. I'm especially not going to be made to feel guilty about it by someone who definitely wants Pakistan to be Pakistani. I'm the one being consistent here because I don't begrudge Pakistan being Pakistani. I don't begrudge Pakistan having a Pakistani culture. It's not the culture I want to live in. That's the point. It's not American culture. I don't want any part of it. But that's your thing. You can have that in your country. That's perfectly fine. I've been stridently against any attempt by Western countries to let's import democracy. Let's import Westernized concepts of freedom into these. I don't want that. I'm against it. I've always been against it. Because my point is, like, if you don't want democracy there, you don't have to have it. That's up to you. But guess what? I don't want Middle Eastern culture. I don't want it. American culture is not Middle Eastern culture. And that's not the culture that I want to live in. And that should not be the dominant culture in any community in this country, because this is America. Now, the other thing that I keep hearing is that our founding fathers valued diversity, specifically when it comes to Muslims. And so I see there's like 2 or 3 quotes from the same 2 or 3 quotes I've seen circulating from somebody back around that, George Washington talking about mentioning Muslims. But all that proves is that the founders knew that Islam existed, which of course they did, and that they didn't want to oppress or persecute Muslims, which of course they don't, and they didn't. And I don't want that. They wanted religious liberty for everybody. Again, of course they wanted that. I also want that. The people in charge can't fix a pothole, but they want you to trust them with your drinking water. Ask people in Flint, Michigan how that turned out. Lead, heavy metals, rust, basically liquid poison straight from the tap. That's why I suggest the Cove Pure water purifier to keep your family safe, because unlike the government, Cove Pure actually does its job. America's tap water is a cocktail of heavy metals and toxins, the fallout of corroded pipes that should have been replaced decades ago. Lead exposure, by the way, doesn't just make your water taste like you're chewing on a car battery. It causes brain damage, cancer, birth defects. But sure, trust the city council with your children's brains. What could possibly go wrong, right? Well, Cove Pure is the obvious fix. Their clear wave technology removes up to 99.9% of contaminants, lead, PFAs, pharmaceuticals, you name it. No plumbers, no drilling. Just plug it in on the countertop, set the temperature you want with the touchscreen, and it actually tastes like water. Imagine that. So don't wait around for the government to solve this. They won't. So go to covepure.com/Walsh right now. Get $200 off while supplies last. Take back control of your family's health and finally drink water the way it was meant to be. But this was at a time when there were basically no Muslims actually here, aside from a small percentage of slaves who were Muslim. Mass migration from Arab countries was not a thing. What none of the founders ever called for, what none of them could have even conceived, was the idea that millions of people from Arab countries would flood into our country and start taking over entire communities and creating Islamic enclaves in the middle of the United States. What was not conceived is that a formerly American Christian community would become an Islamic state capital in the middle of our country. They never called for that. They never condoned it. They never supported it. They never said anything that could even be remotely construed that way. They never considered it even a possibility that it could happen. So saying that we want Muslims, we don't want to persecute anybody, including Muslims, that's great. Agreed. But that is a far cry from saying, hey, let's import millions of Arab people all at the same time and bring them into this country with their culture and just and push out American culture and supplant it with Middle Eastern culture. And if you honestly think that's what the founding fathers had in mind, then you are just too stupid to even, it's like, I can't talk to you. We can't have a conversation. You're too dumb for it. And that brings us to the latest news out of Dearborn. Actually, this is from a few weeks ago. Somebody named Amy Meck posted this clip of the Islamic police chief of Dearborn. This, again, is from a few weeks ago. But just to, when we talk about supplanting, right, this is not, and you could straw man it all you want. No one is complaining about, there are Muslims who live here. I got no issue with the fact that Muslims live in the country. I got no issue with, the issue is always, okay, you live in this country, assimilate into our culture. You do not supplant our culture with yours. Okay, you cannot require us to assimilate to you, you assimilate to us. That's it. Pretty reasonable. I think that's pretty reasonable. But here's what's actually happening, and this is the police chief of Dearborn describing it. Listen to this.
Wonderful wife, Deanna, a strong, proud Palestinian woman. When I joined the department, Dearborn's Arab American population was nearly 50%, yet less than 3% of our police force reflected the community that we served. The department was not always welcoming to people who were different. Today, the Dearborn Police Department is the department that I wish I worked for when I first started my career. It's now a department that reflects and embraces the community it serves, with 45% of our officers being Arab American. It's a department that respects the dignity and rights of all individuals, including the right to wear hijab, even when facing the justice system. It's a department that is taking meaningful steps to address historical inequity. Together, we've built a police department that values diversity, equity, and respect. One that serves all of Dearborn with honor and integrity. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I'm proud to serve as your chief of police.
Alhamdulillah, he says at the end there. That means all praise is due to Allah. That's a police chief in America giving praise to Allah during an official address to the public in uniform. So that's great. Right? Now, you're not allowed to have any problem. Who could possibly have an issue with that? Of course, every person, if you're not a Muslim and you see that, you find that unsettling. Everyone does. Every single one of us does. It's just that you're supposed to pretend you don't. Meanwhile, he tells us that not long ago, 3% of the police force in the city was Arab. Now it's 45%. So tell me, how do you achieve that kind of demographic transformation in such a short amount of time? 3% to 45%. How do you do that? Well, you do it intentionally. That's how you do it. You do it by driving out the white Christians and replacing them with Arabs. You do it on purpose. That's the only way to do it. You cannot do that any other way than by saying, this is the result we want, and we're going to do whatever is necessary to make that result happen. And that's what they did. And they're not even hiding it. I'm not saying I'm not revealing anything here. They're very clear about it. They prioritized Arabs in the hiring process, pushed out the white Christians, and this is an intentional effort to Islamicize the police force. And he admits that proudly. It's a great thing, he says, because now Arabs in the community have a police force that looks like them. And this is the kind of thing that's considered acceptable for every group on the planet, again, except for white Americans, especially white Christians in America. Every other group can just like openly say, hey, I want to be around people who look like me and are from my culture. And I want institutions to be run by people from my culture. Every group on the planet can openly speak that way. And all of them do, all the time. We're the only ones who aren't allowed to. That's been the deal. That's been the bargain for decades. And you notice the kind of circular logic that's at play here, because so they import Arabs into Michigan. And then they tell us that, well, there's so many Arabs here, because we have a few Arabs now, but so now we need a lot more. And the justification for importing more is always that, well, we've already imported them. So this is how it works. Like you take a community that it's almost entirely white and Christian, and then you say, hey, we need to diversify. Let's import a few Arabs. Then once you import them, you say, hey, well, now that we have this minority group here, they should be more supported. So let's import some more for the sake of diversity. And then once you have a critical mass, you say, hey, well, there's so many of them here, they should be represented better. So let's start driving the white Christians out of positions of authority and installing them instead. And this continues exponentially until before long, the white Christian community has become, the formerly white Christian community has become an Arab Muslim community. That's the way it goes. And that's the process. And all the while, Arab Muslims in America are allowed to say, hey, I want to be around other Arab Muslims. I want my government to be run by people like me. This is what I want. They're allowed to say that. And if you're a white Christian, you say, well, you know what? I want people like me running the government. That is unspeakable bigotry. How dare you? So this is the you can't, well, it's not even a double standard, actually. It's like a pretty consistent standard that is applied where they say, okay, well, here, if you're not white Christian, here's what you're allowed to say. But if you are, these are all the things you're not allowed to say. And it's a standard that's applied pretty consistently. Which is why, by the way, I have to admit I was wrong about something. I confess that when conservatives would fret about Sharia law coming to America, I didn't really share their concerns for a lot. Actually, I thought it was kind of a boomer cringe thing for a long time. It's the kind of thing you see 65-year-olds posting about on Facebook. And because I thought, well, Sharia law is the least of our concerns, given that the leftist project is the opposite of Sharia law. I mean, it's the extreme opposite, right? They want naked cross-dressers running around. They want men in women's rooms. It's the opposite of Sharia law. The extreme opposite. But I was wrong because it is coming here through mass migration. I mean, obviously, right? It's like pretty obvious. That's how these things come here, is through mass migration. Now, are we going to have a Sharia law federal government anytime soon? No. But what you end up with are these communities where, again, you push everybody out, you import your people, and now it's, now you have Pakistan right in the middle of the country. Just like we have Somalia right in the middle of the country. This is not assimilation. This was never supposed to be the bargain. This was not supposed to be the deal. But it's what has happened. And we should not feel any shame about protesting it and speaking honestly about it. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.